Good afternoon, and welcome to the Veterans Forum. This is a program we're putting on here at the Concord Television Studios in conjunction with the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. It's something that's been going on now since the year 2000. I've been lucky. I've been doing this show down in Massachusetts, and when I moved here to New Hampshire, I was allowed to and asked to continue here. What we're doing basically is asking each and every guy and gal who served anywhere in any of the wars, starting from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and all the others that have happened since, if they can and will share that experiences in a televised interview. You'll be giving a copy of the show that actually it's probably one of the best legacies that you can leave your family. Just think about it. When you and I, and we're getting close to that point, can no longer be here, the kids and the grandkids can look at it and say, oh, that's what Grandpa did, and so on. Before I start, though, I've carried this thing around for a couple of months now. This is a special link throughout the state of New Hampshire. Any veteran or friends of one, if they feel they need help, can call this one number, 211. Okay, remember that. It may be the best phone call you can make. It'll put you in touch with a cadre of people. There's some 28 different activities and groups here that will answer any and all your questions. It's there for you to use. You have to ask for it, but you will get the best of service. Well, today we have another, this is our, if you will, our introduction show here in Concord. We've been to other parts of the state. And I'm going to ask Dick to introduce himself, and then we'll take the show, okay? If you will, sir. Give us your name, spell your last name for the record, your branch of service, and dates of service.
I'm Dick Hayes, Hayes. I was Lieutenant Junior Grade in the U.S. Navy. I served from June of 1951 to April of 1954.
Okay. Thank you. Now, we know who you are. Let's go back and find out how you got to be. For example, where and when were you born, and what was your life like growing up? Any members of your family in the service? Did you have any brothers and sisters? And remember that show, This Is Your Life? This is going to be your life, but we won't have anybody coming out of the woodwork. It's just what you want to share with us. It's on.
Okay, I was born in 1929 in Chicago, Illinois, and shortly after that, the stock market crashed, and
Did that cause it?
some people.
Okay, had to ask. I'm sorry, Dick.
But my dad was a fortunate one who still had a job. The company that he worked for cut everybody's pay in half so that they could keep people working.
Yeah.
Anyway, we lived out on the south side of Chicago, just a few blocks from the Indiana line, where we could hear the siren from the steel mills when they were making a pour over in Geary. And we stayed there. My sister was born, I was born in May, and my sister was born 5.5 years later in December. At that point, or shortly after that, my dad got transferred back to New Jersey. I don't remember too much about the period in Illinois. Just normal growing up. Went through first and second grade at public school there. Just did the usual stuff that growing up kids do.
Well, what is everybody has their own usual. What was some of your usuals, so we can get build a little bridges?
Well, ate, slept, and
okay, yeah. You kept breathing your big when you had to.
No, we lived in a 3-story apartment house, which was in a lovely place, lovely location, near the shores of Lake Michigan. The apartment was separated from the lake by a lovely park that had been developed there by the city. So we could play in the park. In the summer, we'd swim. I can remember when the lake froze over, going out on the ice floes out there. And at the age of 4 years old, this was like high adventure in the Arctic.
Yeah, it was a good thick ice, though.
Well, thick enough, let's put it that way.
Now, how were you in school? What you do? Like any sports, any activities, bands or so
No,
forth?
not at that age. This was only kindergarten and
Oh,
first grade,
okay.
so that was early age. So we moved when I was about 5 and a half. We moved to New Jersey, to Essex County, Montclair, and went through elementary school there.
Were you a good student?
Yeah, reasonably good.
Okay.
Not, not Phi Beta Kappa, but I did okay. By that time, my sister had come along. There were just the two of us in the family. And that period of time would have been from about 1935, 36.
Just at the cusp of the
pardon me?
Depression.
Hmm?
Just at the Depression, really.
Yes, it
Tail
was.
end of it,
Yeah, it was. So about then, of course, I was going through elementary school and junior high school, and got into high school. But by that time, WW2 had begun. We weren't sure what circumstances were going to be. I can remember that being a Boy Scout and doing scrap metal drives, and
Oh, yeah.
my dad was an air raid warden, and I thought this was a very big deal because I was his assistant, and I was a messenger. I got my bicycle, could ride back and forth, and oh boy, that was...
Did you have a whistle to blow if you could see the windows and all that?
just about.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was good. We had our family lived there, and both my mother's family and my dad's family both lived in the same town. So I was blessed to have the opportunity to get to know my grandparents.
That's good.
Which was wonderful experience. I didn't get to know them that well because I was too young to ask smart questions, And but I have found out since then, in doing genealogical research, that both my maternal and my paternal grandparents were really quite significant guys in their own field. But we had a lot of opportunity to spend time with our respective ancestors.
Good.
Which was very, very good. At 19, let's see, it was 1945. Now, my parents thought it would be a good thing for me if I got some experience away from home, not knowing where I was going to be when I turned 17. And so they sent me up to New Hampshire. I went to Exeter for 2 years, took the exams, got in. But I finished my junior and senior year in high school at Exeter. Along the way, back when I was about 10 or 12 years old, my dad told me about an ancestor of mine. A lot of my family comes from New England. One of my ancestors, Alexander Shapley, was the man who founded the city Kittery.
Oh.
There's an island off Portsmouth, Shapley Island, that was bequeathed to him by King George III. So we have a lot of family up here. Anyway, Dad told me about an ancestor of mine who had skippered a schooner that was doing coastal shipping up and down the East Coast, who, as I found out later, died at sea right off the coast of New Hampshire, about halfway between Rye Beach and Isle of Shoals. Well, knowing that one of my ancestors had been a seafarer, I was really into the Navy. I wanted to be my career. And I had prepared for and was ready to fill out the paperwork for an application to the Naval Academy. But I learned that all they were offering at the time were engineering degrees, which I didn't want to pursue. And so I went down other paths. Well, when I was at Exeter in my senior year, the Holloway Plan was just coming into effect. Rear Admiral Holla, I can't remember his first name, had developed a plan in order to attract young people into the service and offer them commissions outside.
Male and female, or just male?
Oh, well, at the time it was mostly male.
Yeah, okay.
I don't recall any female at that. No, it was all male at that time. But it involved taking a competitive examination, and from which candidates were selected, and then had the opportunity to attend a private college for which the service would pay, the government would pay. They bought your tuition, gave you your books, $50 a month. You were considered a midshipman, with a USN commission. And during the summer training, you took your training cruise right along with the Naval Academy midshipmen. So I did that. I took the examination and fortunately was selected and was able to get into Princeton. Actually, we were the first class, the first class to complete the full program of the Holloway plan. When we graduated from college, we were given a USN commission.
Ensigns?
As an ensign, correct. And we were able to serve on a par with the Naval Academy graduates. We had an obligation of 3 years of active duty, at which time we had to make a commitment as to whether we wanted to continue with an active duty career or whether we wanted to go into a reserve. If we wanted to go into the reserve, we would then be committed for 5 years of active reserves. You were on active reserve list for recall. Anyway, my first duty assignment was a heavy cruiser, the USS Albany, and I was assigned to the the operations department as a junior officer in the radio division. Served as the division officer for the radio division. I subsequently went to electronics school where I learned electronics material, returned to the ship and continued with my assigned duties as radio officer. And then at the end of 2 years, they asked us whether we wanted to continue in active service, in which event they were offering us duty stations. Oh, it was wonderful. You could have any duty station you wanted. But at that time, I chose not to pursue an active career in the service.
Okay, just pay
so
back
I
your
then
time.
reverted to a USNR commission and continued the last year of my service I had already made Lieutenant JG, but it was with a USNR commission as opposed to USN. They transferred me into the amphibious forces where I became a communication officer on the staff of an LSD division commander. We had 6 LSDs under
What's an LSD?
landing ship dock.
Okay,
They're the ones that
service.
Pardon me?
What does it service? What's its function?
It serviced the amphibious landing craft. The ship was basically a floating dry dock.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
a landing ship
the
dock.
mothership you got nursed around.
Right. They would take on ballast and drop the stern of the ship. There was a big open well. Well.
Yeah, a lot of water.
But when you were approaching a landing area, the LSD would have landing craft in the dry well. They would anchor at their assigned point, drop the stern of the ship, the well would fill up with water, and the landing craft would just motor out to their assigned positions. Likewise, when you were picking up picking up these landing craft after, when they were either damaged or after the operation, they just reversed the process.
Well, how many could they accommodate? 2, 4, 5?
I don't remember. They'd have, I think there were, my memory serves me, order of magnitude 10, 12, 14 of them. Depended. Some of them they stacked in there. It depended on what you were doing. But my job, actually, I was only assigned to the staff for a short period of time, because then we were then transferred over to a transport division commander's staff, where I performed the same function. But in this case, what we were doing is overseeing a whole transport division, which consisted of, I think there were 4 troop transport ships in the division, 3 cargo ships, an assorted number of other miscellaneous types of ships. But the basic purpose that I was assigned to that staff was to help organize, set up a training program, a training landing for a reinforced battalion of Marines down in Vieques. So we had to develop the whole operation plan and then put it into effect. So that we worked on that. The staff worked together for about 6 months, developing this plan, a lot of boilerplate that we'd gotten from previous operations. So it was not all original thought, but we had to bring it up to date and disseminate it to all of the units that were going to be operating. So we did. We set that.
Where were you? What was your home port?
Well,
Up and down the coast?
it was all Atlantic Fleet. My first duty station aboard the Albany was Atlantic Fleet. We operated out of Norfolk. When I reported aboard, the ship was in dry dock, gone into dry dock for miscellaneous repairs. And then we came out of there, operated for a couple of weeks, just getting back into getting the sea legs back again.
A little shakedown cruise.
And then we went over and relieved the ships of the Sixth Fleet over in the Mediterranean. We left in September. Yeah, it was in September. We were in the Mediterranean September, October, November, and came back to the United States in December. So we were back. We were over there for 3.5 months. But that was fascinating.
Just that one cruise, or did you make repeats later on?
No, we only did the one cruise there, and then when we returned to the States, we just operated. We made one midwinter cold weather exercise up in the Arctic. That was really fascinating. Excuse me. We were up in we were operating about 600 miles south of the Arctic Circle with some.
Well, by Greenland, Iceland, up
It was
there.
in that area, yeah, and it was very interesting because at the time I was in radio communications, and the experience we were communicating from a point around Greenland with our the naval radio station in Washington. We were communicating with them via Frankfurt, Germany, because of atmospheric conditions. I had probably the best CPO in the Navy, who was covering my fanny for me.
Amen.
He really trained me well.
Now, I'm going to interrupt a second.
Great
but
guy.
when you started talking about your med cruise, you just lit up. And let's go back there and give us some of the interesting tidbits here that made it worth your while.
That was fabulous experience over there. It took 10 days. We were traveling in company with the Franklin Roosevelt carrier. We were flagship for the operation. We had a rear admiral aboard, and we took 10 days just performing training operations of one kind or another. Ended up stopped in Lisbon, Portugal, and we pulled Liberty in Lisbon. We had a good time.
You face says so, but can you dare to exchange what your good time was?
Well, we were
I'm nosy.
a bunch of JOs. We went over into Lisbon, and the thing I remember most was we ran across a little street fair that was going on, like a neighborhood block party, and they had the usual Ferris wheels and the gumball operators and the fried dough, etc. But they had a Dodgem car stand set up.
Uh-oh.
Well, we went over to the Dodgem cars.
Anybody get arrested DWI?
Well, the people, the natives, were just in these little electric cars driving around very sedately in circles. And we said, that's not the way that works. So we ended up with the natives having a wonderful time, crashing into each other. When the natives saw us do this, they looked at us like, what is going on? Well, they finally got the hang of it, and everybody was laughing and just having the most wonderful time. So anyway, we did Lisbon. We ended up doing almost every country on the north side of the Mediterranean. We went down, not necessarily in this order, but we went from Lisbon, we did Gibraltar, we went to the Riviera, we were in Cannes, which was really, really nice. We went to Italy, to Sicily. We were in Greece, Istanbul, Turkey, in Algiers.
Dropped down into North Africa.
We did the whole thing. But anyway, we were the flagship for the Sixth Fleet, which was kind of honorary, but it was also a pain in the neck because there was a lot of extra spit and polish that the admiral insisted on. So
you were emissaries of the great country.
But it was a great experience. Great experience.
And did you behave as gentlemen?
Of course.
I had to ask.
I'm an officer and a gentleman.
I know,
but by act of Congress, if no other way. So, anyway, that was.
Now, did you intermix any of the other Navy in the area? Did you, like, swap off duties or visit back and forth?
You mean with other ships?
Yeah, other navies, not just the U.S.
Oh,
Navy.
no. At that time, NATO had not gotten underway.
Okay.
We were actually. I'm authorized to wear the occupation medal with a European clasp, which was because this was 1951. 1951, the Korean War was still ongoing. So things were a little tacky over there. When we were in Istanbul, which was as close to the Soviet Union as we got, we had boat patrols out every night, and we were very concerned about the possibility of Russian swimmers or sabotage, that kind of thing.
UDT boys.
Right. So, but no, we didn't. We had no other ships of other nationalities. We saw no action, fortunately. I was blessed. A lot of guys, good men, were getting shot up over on the other side of the world, but not in our case. Anyway, we did Istanbul, hit Algiers on the way home, and then came home. We were home for Christmas. Other than that, the experiences that I had, I think it was nothing too exciting, for which I'm eternally grateful.
You didn't have to be Audie Murphy. The basic line is you had a job to do and you did it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We were there as a presence, and fortunately, that's all we had to do. The attentions of the world powers were really elsewhere. They were over in the Pacific and in the Korean theater. So, but we were over there backstopping things. The rest of the work that I did was basically all communications and of one type or another.
Anything that's not classified, you can tell us about. So we get
not much.
a lot of people have no idea what basic means. So
well, no,
it's a chance to do some recruiting.
Really, everything at that time, well, everything today is so much further advanced, but at the time, we were fairly well advanced. We had aboard our ship, when the Admiral came aboard, the flag came aboard, he brought with him a radio facsimile equipment, some radio facsimile equipment that was used for weather charts. And what was on a table that was probably, it's got to be maybe 3 feet by 8 feet. Today is a little laptop computer.
Yeah.
You know, the miniaturization. But it was among the very first.
At the time, that was the peak.
It was state of the art. It would take them forever to download this thing. They were using thermographic paper, and the thing would just interminably, because these big weather charts would be the size of that whole table. Mm-hmm. But now the other equipment was basically just radio equipment. We had as flagship, we were maintaining a large number of different kinds of circuits that a normal ship would not have to maintain. So we had more equipment than others did.
Any electric grid telephones?
No, well, none that I knew of, except
James Bond, if you will.
Except if the Admiral wanted to do something,
Yeah.
you had to do it. Yeah, exactly.
You want
exactly.
6 or a dozen?
Yeah, exactly. But it was a terrific experience. I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world. I think back on it, and some of my best memories, the men that I knew and the friends that I made, and the experiences were wonderful.
When did you get out of the Navy? What did you do then? Where did you go to
well, I got out of
make
the
a
Navy.
living?
I got out of the Navy in '54, and of course the Korean War had ended. Well, the troops,
it was winding down.
It was winding down. They were, I guess, just in the armistice. The Korean, yeah, that one, what'd that go, Bob? 51 to
53.
50 to 53, yeah. So the war actually was ended, but they were in the truce talks up at Panmunjom. Anyway, I came back to my family who were living in New Jersey.
Now, did you join anything like the Legion or the VFW?
No, I never did. I never did. At the time, I was the job that I took. I knew I was going to be assigned to elsewhere, to another. I went into the sales department of a company that I worked for, and they put me in a training program, and I knew in their headquarters and in their factory,
What kind of work did you do? What was your product line?
Insulated wire and cable.
Okay.
Okay,
Stockies.
high voltage stuff. We sold material basically to utilities, to power distribution companies, as opposed to building wire and that kind of thing. We were much more in industrial design, factory design and construction.
Okay.
That's where it would be. But it was running, 500, 600 volt up to 23,000 volt cables, transmission lines and the like. So I knew I was going to be transferred, and I chose not to get in to affiliate with a reserve unit.
How about the GI Bill? Did you take any advantage of that to get the additional education?
Never did. Could have done at one time. Could have done it, but could have gone to grad school. But
Yeah.
I chose not to go to grad school. That probably one of the things that I.
Called hindsight.
Yeah, that's what it's
Hindsight.
called. Always accurate.
2020.
Always accurate. But I chose not to.
Okay.
Things were too good. In that period of America's history, that was the golden
Is that
age.
when you got married, or were you married before?
Well, I was going to just get to that.
Okay, because the girls like to hear about that.
Because I went to work for this company, Okanite company, and I guess it was in May. Well, I got out in April, and I went to work in May.
Slacker, huh? Slacker took all.
I
took
know.
a month off.
I know. But anyway, I was going through this training program, and I met my bride-to-be at a New Year's Eve party, and we were married. I met her there, and then I got transferred in April, and she came down. I got transferred to Birmingham, Alabama.
Ooh.
And she came down to visit for a week and went home. And the next time I saw her was at the night before the wedding. So
Wow.
but we've been married for what is it, 60?
Needs to
60. I got to remember this, or she'll kill me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, probably
We were married 50.
a long time.
Well, 62 years.
Okay.
And very, very fortunate, very fortunate.
How about your family?
Well,
Brothers,
we
sisters, cousins. We'll cut at the grandkids though.
we started having kids pretty quick because we both wanted to have a family. We had one that was our firstborn was a son down in Birmingham, but we got transferred back up to New Jersey. His sister was born 51 weeks later, but she was born. Her mother went to the hospital in Montclair, New Jersey, and Rory was born in Glen Ridge, New Jersey.
Is that good or bad? I'm
well,
not allowed to go to Jersey. I don't
It was
know.
an interesting situation. We made fun of it because the town line between Montclair and Glen Ridge went right down.
Literally your living room?
Delivery room.
Yeah. Okay, one half of me is good.
Yeah, really.
That happens.
So anyway, we've had 5 wonderful kids. Unfortunately, we lost the oldest one in one car automobile accident. But they're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful kids. They've all but one married. We've got marvelous grandkids, and some of whom are, one of whom is serving his country as we speak. He's a lieutenant junior grade in the Coast Guard. He started his first service up in Lake Huron doing buoy tending and ice breaking duties up there, but he's now down in Pensacola learning how to fly helicopters to do air-sea rescue work.
Yeah.
So
Good for him.
yes, indeed. His his brother is graduating from college this year and will be going into the Delaware State Police Department if he's accepted.
Oh.
Yep. We have all the...
How about the girls?
Pardon me?
How about the girls?
We have a very creative granddaughter, the oldest of our granddaughters, who's living on the West Coast, marvelous photographer, just terrific designer. She's working out there. She just came back from a 4-month trip down through Mexico and Central America that she took with her boyfriend on a motorcycle. God love him.
Oh. No way. The only way you can get some of those back roads in Mexico anyways, the bumpity bumpity bump.
But her sister is just graduated from the University of San Francisco and is a registered nurse in San Francisco. Her brother is in the State Department. So he's doing work on visa application investigations, which is fascinating. I have a grandson who is living here in New Hampshire. He graduated from Hamilton College. He's involved in landscaping right now. His sister, who is outstanding student, of All-American lacrosse player at Trinity College, she is now working for an NGO, 501c3 organization in Washington.
So they're pretty well going. Good.
They're terrific kids. We have a 8-year-old granddaughter living in Manhattan. So anybody wants to nominate a female for presidency, she's it. She's it. So, and then we have 2 other grandsons who just started
college. Yeah.
So we're not quite sure.
They grew up fast.
Oh, don't blink your eyes, you'll miss it.
I know.
But,
now, what do you do now that you are now, I guess, physically retired and just taking it easy?
oh yeah, yeah. Well, I work on and off. What happened is after I got through selling insulated wire and cable, I got into construction businesses doing marketing and sales work for them. I then came up to Massachusetts to join my father-in-law in his business in the leather industry, which immediately after I arrived collapsed.
Welcome aboard, Carter. Oh, God.
So, but anyway, I continued in the leather business as a manufacturer's representative, and fortunately was able to continue that up until really about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And at that point, things were slow. The leather industry has just diminished right before your very eyes. But I've continued to keep active. I'm doing genealogical work, genealogical research work on a family tree, which is fascinating. Again, going back to my ancestor who was the skipper of the schooner.
The slope, yeah.
Some fascinating people. I really recommend it to anybody. Just start poking around in their family. They'll find out some fascinating things.
Talking about that communications, do you keep in touch with any of you guys you're in the service with to keep you tied into the loop?
I trade. Yeah, I did. One time when the internet first came in, first began, I used it to find out where some of my shipmates were and got back in touch with them, reestablished contact with 3 or 4 of them, particularly.
Any reunions, ship reunions? At all?
No, the Albany is a name that has been given to 2 ships, 2 classes of ships. There was a heavy cruiser Albany, which was a CA. It was subsequently changed over to a guided missile cruiser, CG. And the other Albany is a submarine. Now, the submariners.
Submarine?
Yeah,
I thought
the
submarines
submarine
are
Albany.
all fish, types of fish. They changed that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they got oh yeah,
The George Washington Polaris, okay.
yeah.
Answered my own
The whole
question.
thing, yeah, exactly.
I'm behind
No,
the
I'm with
time.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, go
It
ahead.
used to be just fish, but no, I established contact with 3 or 4 of them. One of whom I maintain regular contact with, but both he and his wife are deceased now. He was retired as a commander. He was academy graduate,
Oh,
retired
canoe
as a commander, and I still trade Christmas cards with another one. My old roommate aboard the Albany, good guy, trench shaver, good man. So, but other than that, no, those are the only ones. But the service experience for me was a
Positive
wonderful,
or negative, I think.
wonderful experience.
Good.
The one thing that motivated me to enter civilian life and discontinue my naval career path was the extended deployments. I wanted periods of time to be with my family and with my children, and so I became a salesman and was in an airplane 3 weeks out of the.
I'll send you a postcard where it was.
So, but I was home on the weekends.
Okay.
So, no, but that was, but the service experience for me was outstanding. It's benefited me in my business and in my career, just as far as organizational development, learning. If you get a good sergeant or a good chief petty officer, you're home free.
Yeah, I know.
Just pay attention, and you learn all the other stuff in the books, but they tell you how it really works. So.
Let me ask kind of an adult question. With the way politics are today and the uncertainty a lot of kids have with respect to the thing, would you suggest or recommend, we're not recruiting folks, that they look into joining any of the services for a 2-year stint to get some real good training they can use forever on out?
Well,
am I selling it the right way?
I think you are. I have long been a quiet advocate for a required period of
Compulsory
service to the country, that public service. I think that for young people, men and women, coming out of high school, I know in my own case, and I know hundreds of other cases, they really don't have a sense of direction. They think they have some ideas. Some of them are blessed, who knew, like the 2 grandsons. One of them went to the Coast Guard Academy. He knew that's what he wanted to do, and boy, he's doing it.
And he's
the other
climb.
one, he says, I want to be in the state. They had this wonderful sense of direction on which they could make their decisions, for their good decisions for their education and for their own personal development. But so many people coming out of high school today don't have that same sense of purpose or a sense of where they want to go. And for spending a period, it could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, whatever, I don't know, that's a detail. But a period of time where they are performing a service to someone else, they're getting outside themselves, and say, work in a hospital, work in a school, and whatever. But a period of public service, after which you pursue your
Gives it a good building block.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I know if I had done that, instead of going along the path of, well, you went from A to B to C to D, you went to high school, you went to college, you got married, you got a job, you started to have kids. It was all, I really didn't find out who I was until I was in my mid-30s. And even then, I was.
You still wonder who's who.
There are some around here who think
Yeah.
are not quite as sure as I am.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's would be a wonderful experience.
Well, I've asked a lot of people, and they say, with the same idea, it gives the kids a chance to, well, take a deep breath. Rather, a lot of them really have to work to get through school.
Right.
Some find it a snap, but you become responsible and responsive. Responsible for what your actions are, and responsive how people react to you.
Yeah,
So
good.
You learn to fit.
Good point.
You know, it's
Good.
a silly thing, but it's called common sense.
Good point. Well, yeah, which is uncommon.
I know, which is uncommon. Okay, the Marines sing down in Washington.
Right on. No, the military experience, which is definitely not for everybody.
Amen.
It's definitely not, but it's a wonderful experience. The learning about organization, I think that's the greatest gift that I've received from that experience, was learning organization, how it works. And it's been valuable to me, invaluable to me, wherever I've gone. Understanding the interrelationship of departments and how to work between and communicate between departments. Maybe it was me, but it was the basis for everything that I subsequently became.
And it's building blocks all the way along.
All the way along.
No matter what you have, somewhere, somehow, I'm going to be able to sell one of these things someday, I think. I'm off there. Hey, anything else you'd like to say?
I can't think of anything, particularly as far as my military service is concerned. I just say again, I think that it was invaluable. It's probably strange that if I say that, well, why didn't you keep going?
Yeah.
But I felt that I wanted to.
You know what you wanted.
You know.
Amen.
So.
3 words. Thank you, buddy.
My pleasure, Bob.
Ooh, it's
My
nice
pleasure.
and warm. We'll see you later. Okay.
Good.
That's going to be a wrap, folks. But before we leave, I'd like to remind you again, wherever you are, whoever you are, and or your friends and family, if you feel you need some help and you know where to go, pick up your phone, 211. It'll probably be a real good phone call if you do. And for those of you who may be seeing this for the first time, if you want to share your stories with us, the address will be on the back of the program. My name is Bob Stevens. I wish you well. Stay healthy. Goodbye.